Tonight on the Daily Debrief, an attack on an actor, but was he involved? Plus, possible legal jeopardy for an R&B artist accused of sleeping with an underage girl. Also, a defendant who claimed rough sex caused a murder victim's injuries, then blamed her boyfriend for the crime, is ordered to pay up. And did greed cause a defendant to kill a family of 4? The defense cuts into key state evidence. The nation's top criminal cases are on the Daily Debrief for Monday, February 18th. And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Debrief tonight. 2 grand juries are reportedly working tonight in 2 Chicago cases. Their jobs to determine if 2 celebrities broke the law. The first case involves actor Jussie Smollett. He is best known for his role in the Fox series Empire. He says he was attacked by 2 men who tied a rope around him and poured an unknown chemical substance on him, all while those men allegedly yelled racial and homophobic slurs. But CNN is reporting that Smollett may have orchestrated the whole thing. Their reporting is based on 2 unnamed law enforcement sources. Chicago police last week took 2 brothers from Nigeria who are apparently now fully cooperating with the investigation in for questioning. At least one of the brothers also appeared on the series Empire. TMZ says a grand jury will consider the case this week. Smollett's attorneys released a statement over the weekend saying, as a victim of a hate crime who has cooperated with the police investigation, Jussie Smollett is angered and devastated by recent reports that the perpetrators are individuals he is familiar with. He has now been further victimized by claims attributed to these alleged perpetrators that Jussie played a role in his own attack. Nothing is further from the truth, and anyone claiming otherwise is lying. A grand jury has also reportedly been seated to determine whether to charge R&B singer R. Kelly with a crime. CNN says the prosecutor's office in Cook County, Illinois, would not confirm the grand jury's existence, but that 2 unnamed sources did. Meanwhile, attorney Michael Avenatti claims he has evidence that Kelly's enablers intimidated witnesses, tampered with evidence, and even made physical threats and payments in in order to secure a 2008 acquittal against Kelly on child pornography charges. Kelly faces new accusations he engaged in sexual activity with underage girls. Avenatti claims the sex act is on tape. Joining me tonight for analysis on this case is Marni Jo Snyder. So Marni Jo, let's assume there is indeed grand jury involvement. It's not confirmed, but it sounds like there might be. So what is happening behind the closed doors?
Well, we don't really know from these sources whether the grand jury is an investigating one, which is to get to the bottom of something, right? To find as many facts as possible, to compel witnesses to come in and say what they know, and then to really have a report of all of those things, either for public consumption or for a prosecutor. An indicting grand jury is a little bit different. It's whether or not it's more likely that a crime was committed and that the person that's the target of that investigation is the one that committed that crime. So right now, if it's an indicting grand jury, prosecutors are putting on the evidence that they have to show the grand jury, these are the charges we think that you should bring, and can you find that it's more likely than not that this is the person that did these crimes.
Okay, so if you're either of these 2 gentlemen, if you're Smollett, if you're R. Kelly, are you getting nervous right now?
Yes. I think that anyone who is the target of a grand jury investigation of any kind should have some nerve, right? Because they're done in secret. So you don't, I think that uncertainty and not knowing what's being presented, whether those things are fair, is part of a nerve-wracking thing. And the other thing is, in R. Kelly's case, public opinion is really shifting in regards to what he has been involved in over time. And more witnesses seem empowered to come out. And of course, we know about movements like Mute R. Kelly that are really trying to say there is support out here for you if you want to come forward. So to be facing these types of charges again, he has to be freaking out at this point.
Marni Jo Snyder will check in again with you at the end of the broadcast. Jury selection begins today for 2 trials we're covering this week on the Law&Crime Network. David Dooley of Kentucky is facing his 2nd trial on charges he murdered his co-worker, Michelle Mockbee. Why a 2nd trial? Because it turned out the lead investigator in the case was having an affair with the prosecutor in the original trial. Also at issue back in the original trial was a surveillance video the prosecutor never turned over to the defense. The original prosecutor did not even make it past the primary election after her own political party urged her to resign. In Florida, David Russell Holbrook Jr. will face trial on charges he murdered a mother of 3 back in 2006. Authorities say victim Melissa Howard was stabbed and beaten. She had just won a child custody battle against her ex-husband. The defendant was her ex-husband's friend. The ex-husband himself has an alibi for the time of the killing. Jury selection in this case also began today. Another case we're watching closely here on the Law and Crime Network is the Colorado prosecution of Patrick Frazee. He is the father accused of killing his fiancée, Kelsey Barrett. Another woman, Crystal Lee Kenny, admitted helping dispose of evidence. She pleaded guilty and is helping investigators. Frazee faces a preliminary hearing tomorrow, but cameras are not allowed. Documents filed in a civil suit filed by Barrett's family against Frazee accuse him of killing her because he wanted full custody of their daughter. Crime is costly. That's the lesson for a convicted killer in Wisconsin who has been ordered to pay thousands of dollars to the family of his victim. Tonight we look back at the case and to the money now owed.
And if you would pass the verdict forms over to the bailiff.
A jury convicted George Birch of murdering Nicole Vanderheiden. Birch claimed another man, Doug Detry, was the real killer, but data from Detry's Fitbit suggested he was not active at the time of the killing. Here was the verdict.
State of Wisconsin versus George Stephen Birch, Brown County case 16 CF 1309. The verdict reads as follows. We, the jury, find the defendant, George Stephen Birch, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide, is charged in the information. It is signed by our foreperson and dated this first day of March, 2018. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is this your verdict? Yes.
Defendant Birch will have to pay Doug Detry, the man he accused of committing the crime, about $23,500. That's for lost wages, expenses, and counseling. Detry asked for nearly $350,000 but didn't get it. Birch must also pay more than $6,000 to the victim's mother for lost wages and her daughter's cemetery headstone. About $4,500 will go to the Wisconsin Crime Victim Compensation Fund. The total restitution comes out to $37,000.
Murder trial occurred 1 year ago this month. He took the stand and claimed that he went home with the victim, but that Detry knocked him out after Detry caught him having rough sex with the victim. The jury did not believe this testimony about the victim's injuries.
What really happened was you drove Nicole home 20 miles away from where you lived, fully expecting that you were going to have sex, right? That was your expectation. You were going to have sex. That's why you're driving her home, right?
I was hoping that we would. It was leading from what had happened before and where we had spoken. It seemed like that's what was going to happen.
And when you get there and it becomes clear that Nikki isn't going to have sex with you, when she attempts to go into her house and leave your vehicle, that's when your mood changes, right?
No, sir.
That's when things get aggressive, don't they?
Not at all.
That's when you grab that cord and strangle her, don't you?
No, sir, not at all.
That's when Nikki gets slammed on the ground repeatedly when she's trying to run toward her house, when those bloodstains lead in the direction back to her home.
None of that is true.
Well, how do you know? You were out cold when Nikki was assaulted.
Because you said I did it.
Nikki was strangled. She had a fractured jaw, correct?
I don't know, sir. That's what the medical examiner said. But I can't speak for sir. I'm not a doctor.
You heard all of that, right?
Yes, sir.
You saw her injuries. You sat through court to see the defensive injuries to her hands, to her feet, to her palms, to her fingernails, that she fought for her life, right?
According to what the doctor said, yes.
That defendant remains in prison on a life sentence. Still ahead tonight, here on the Daily Debrief, the McStay family murder trial in California. We have information prosecutors convinced the judge to allow into the case, information which came from the defendant's phone. That's after the break, here on the Debrief. We move now to the McStay family murder trial in California, where testimony about suspicious computer searches and strange business checks rounds out recent testimony. Here is the background on a case expected to last months.
How does this family of four disappear off the face of the earth?
California small business owner Joseph McStay and his entire family disappeared February 4th, 2010. Their car was abandoned near the border. Authorities believed this video showed them fleeing to Mexico, presumably to avoid business debts. Case closed? Not even close. Fast forward more than 3 years to November 2013. A biker discovered the skull of one of the family members in the Mojave Desert.
I was traveling on a dirt road. I stumbled across the remains.
All four were buried nearby. Authorities arrested Chase Merritt, a business associate to Joseph McStay. They believe he killed for money.
The why boils down to greed and greed's child, fraud.
The defense says Merritt didn't do it.
Charles Merritt, which everybody calls Chase, that was his best friend.
The state has presented a $4,000 check from McStay to Merritt, made out the day McStay disappeared. But Merritt never cashed it. He told police there was always money and merchandise moving back and forth between him and McStay, since they frequently did business together.
Someone calls you and indicates that they are Joseph McStay.
Someone with at least some access to McStay's business accounts tried to change his QuickBooks software right after McStay vanished. The state also presented cell phone searches for information about the family's disappearance, made by Merritt, shortly after the family's bodies turned up in the desert. In those graves, a hammer prosecutors believe was the murder weapon. Also, shards of a bath mat. Authorities think it matches linens missing from the family's home.
They were beaten about the head and face until they died.
The family's home, prosecutors say, is the crime scene, but evidence is scant.
You will look for things, signs of violence, correct?
Yes.
And you didn't see any of them?
No, sir.
One officer who took photographs there realized back at the lab that she may have found blood on the family's table, but she didn't see it when she was in the house, and it was cleaned before anyone knew it was there.
When I saw it, I was horrified.
Why?
Because I thought it was something I missed.
The defense is pointing to an alternate suspect who also did business with the family, and to unknown DNA found in the family's graves.
Another piece of evidence the defense contested in this case was an enhanced image from a neighbor's security camera. The original dark and fuzzy recording occurred at night. This, prosecutors believe, is the defendant's truck in the McStay family neighborhood just after the family vanished. Traffic there is rare because the family lived on a dead-end street. An evidence hearing last week revealed interesting information about the defendant's phone. The phone contained 5 clues. First, an image of the tire tracks left behind at the family's grave sites. Second, searches about changing one's identity. Third, searches about the Mexican border. Fourth, an image of the defendant himself at the gravesite memorial. And fifth, a screenshot of Joseph McStay's phone contacts. Those items were all on the defendant's phone, but the images from the gravesite were all taken after the biker found the family's bones. The judge is allowing some of this evidence into the trial. The defense in this case is fighting back against suggestions that checks written from the victim's accounts to defendant Chase Merritt were suspicious. When were those checks written? In the days before and after the family is believed to have vanished.
Can you tell us when this check was created?
At 11:29 a.m.
And when was that check deleted?
11:37 a.m.
Who is that check made out to?
This was made out to Charles Merritt.
Showing you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 429. Is this audit history reflected on the activity log that you have?
Yes, it is.
Can you tell us when this check was created?
At 7:59 p.m.
On what date?
on February 4th, 2010.
And was this check also deleted?
Yes, it was.
What time was that?
8:05 p.m.
Who was that check made out to?
Charles Merritt.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 430 for identification purposes. Can you tell us if this is also reflected, if this audit history is also reflected on the activity log that you have.
Yes, it is.
And is this for a check that was created on February 5th of 2010 at 12:06 p.m.?
Yes, it is.
Can you tell us when this check was deleted?
12:38 p.m. on February 5th.
And who is this check made out to?
Charles Merritt.
Those were just some of the checks prosecutors pointed out last week in this case. It's unclear whether many or any of those checks were actually cashed by the defendant. The defense forced another investigator in the case to discuss the entire timeline surrounding those checks. There were phone calls, though, too. Maybe this isn't as suspicious as the state wants jurors to believe.
According to the phone records, there was a call from my client's phone to Jussie McStay. Appears to be checks added, deleted, and then calls made to QuickBooks.
Correct.
And after that 1 hour and 47-minute phone call, again on item 9163, 501, there's a phone call from my client's phone to Jussie McStay's phone again, correct?
Yes.
So all these phone calls that preceded or were after all the check edits and everything that was done in QuickBooks, did you note all of that in your report?
I didn't.
Did you even notice it?
Objection argumented.
Sustained.
Did you examine the phone records to see if there was any calls between Mr. Merritt and Mr. McStay around the time of QuickBook activity?
I did not analyze the phone record.
Make it seem a little less suspicious now with the communication?
Objection argumented.
Sustained because of speculation and conclusions.
Recent testimony in this case also involved the McStay family's computers. Someone was searching for something on one of those computers at 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 days after the family vanished. One of the sites that person checked was MSN.com, which may have been the computer's homepage. But there were also searches to GoMexico.com and other similar sites in the days leading up to the disappearance.
The inquiry is about travel information for kids and documents that are required for kids to go to Mexico.
Yes.
Okay. And I'll show you 848C. Same thing. That would be a site that would be used for information on general entry requirements into Mexico.
Yes.
And 848D, that would also be from about.com, and that would be a site that would be a site where somebody's asking for information about children travel and children requirements to get into Mexico.
Objection, Wax Foundation. Overruled. Can I ask for Yes, it does.
And again, 848E, about.com site, general passport information, whether one is needed or not, for Mexico. Is that what that site reflects?
Yes.
The defense noted that some of the documents on that computer involved the defendant, Chase Merritt. However, the officer testifying did not give those documents a good look.
A folder called Merritt /EV with the folder name indicating the T number and investigator from our lab that the files were saved in. Well,
this is a document that was identified by your team. Is that correct?
This report was not generated by me. If this document was located in that folder and came from... Go ahead. And came from a exact copy of what was provided to this examiner.
Would it be safe to say, you can turn the page, it's okay. Would it be safe to say that this is a document that you've never seen before?
Yes.
And would this also say that this is a document that was on the e-machine desktop computer?
The source count would suggest that. However, there's not enough information for me to be able to tell where this came from.
And this is, again, a document that has a name of Dan Payoff?
Yes, it was an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay. So even though, let's say, for example, you didn't concentrate on other stuff, just mainly internet activity, and this is not internet activity, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay. But other folks could go into the computer and maybe concentrate on documents or other stuff and come up with some files that were not in your report, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Does that have a file creation date? Would you be able to know when that document was created?
This report indicates the file was created on.
Hearsay of explanation.
This report suggests the file was created on February 19th, 2009 at 6:22 p.m.
Let's turn once again to attorney Marni Jo Snyder in this case. Marni Jo, questions about this. Is this bad police work for someone to be looking at the internet searches but not the broader documents that are also on the same systems?
I mean, it indicates that the investigation and exonerated Charles Merritt. And so their own investigation cannot be relied upon. That's very powerful in a case, especially where someone's life is on the line, and there's already some thin and circumstantial evidence put forth by the prosecution.
What do you make of these searches about going to Mexico in the days before and apparently also after the family disappeared? And is it possible that either the prosecution or the defense, they both have these theories that it was someone close to Joseph McStay who did the whole family? And was somebody trying to carry this on and ditching the car near the border, knowing that maybe the family was talking about a vacation or something so that it would not look suspicious?
Yeah, I can't tell. It's very strange. And I have the same questions that you do. I'm interested to see how the prosecution argues this, because the fact that there are these searches beforehand certainly, I think, threw investigators off, right? They thought that they maybe had gone across the border, were fleeing deaths and things like that, and that was plausible to investigators.
Many possible theories here. Marni Jo Snyder,
Right,
appreciate
exactly.
your insight tonight. Thanks a lot for watching The Debrief, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 5 o'clock on the Law and Crime Network. Live trial coverage picks up at 9.